You lay one down on rail and you come out of it and do it again, like it doesn't get better than that. Like it really doesn't. Surfing will come a little bit easier and you'll actually find how a surfboard works.
Welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast. We interview the world's best surfers and the people behind them to provide you with education and inspiration to surf better.
You'll get on a shortboard and it'll feel like featherweight and you can just light it up.
Okay, welcome back to the show, faithful listeners. It has been a while, I know, but we've got today's episode and then I've got 4 more I'm currently editing, so there's plenty of content coming before the end of the year. A couple of housekeeping things before we get into this interview. Firstly, I am currently in Malibu, in California at the moment. I am here until the end of October, and I'm studying functional neurology and looking for case studies. The perfect case study is someone that has already seen everyone. You know, you've seen chiros, physios, physical therapists, massage, etc. You're still in pain, let me know. Also, if there's anyone in Malibu or driving through Malibu that wants to go surfing somewhere, I'm very keen to find some good waves before the end of October as well. So get in touch on that note as well. If there's anyone out there interested in being a guest host of the podcast, please get in touch. If there is a friend of yours who you think would be a good interview and fits into what the show is about, send me an email. Let's chat about it. I'm more than open to having guest hosts. I am also organizing a surf mastery trip. So there's a few people have already expressed interest in this, and so it's going to be probably in Central America. I have found a couple of spots that would suit. So if anyone's interested in coming, please get in touch. And also if anyone has any contacts down there as far as a good location, etc., or any advice, please get in touch as well. The surf trip is going to be based around getting better at surfing. So we're going to have surf coaches, a couple of professional surfers, videographers, etc. So yeah, please get in touch if you're interested in participating or have any advice on that one. You can just send me an email as best, either through the contact page at surfmastery.com or just mike@surfmastery.com. Today's interview is with Bud Freitas. Bud is a surfer from Santa Cruz. Bud spent some time on the WQS. Bud absolutely shreds on a shortboard. As you'll hear in this interview, Bud is a very passionate surfer. He loves surfing, but he's just as passionate about surf coaching. If you want to learn more about Bud, there are links in the show notes. And if you just go to his website, Surf School Santa Cruz, you'll see some more stuff on him, including a piece that Surfer Magazine did on him. There's a nice little 3-minute video that's got some footage of him absolutely ripping. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Bud.
I love it. It's so fun. Watching a kid go from, like you said, the word, mastery, like when you go the next level and then they do their first turn or they do their first floater or just even catching an overhead wave, like just seeing the excitement in the kid's face to the next level is so insane. It's so fun. And the best is after they do something, they want to come up and just let you know, oh my God, I did the biggest turn. And you're just like, yeah, you did. You did a great turn. It's a big old turn, and it's like some little hack, but it's just like in their mind, they threw a big old Aki snap or something. That stuff's the best.
When did you see the steepest learning curve in your own surfing?
I'm going to say when I first started, I got the bug. I was super into it, and then I kind of stepped away after that because I got worked by a wave and held down for a super long time, so it kind of spooked me. And then I came back at it, and then from I'd say 9 and 10 is where I really jumped into it, and then I had friends that joined me. I had a group of friends that surf, and we started competing, and what was happening is I wasn't winning, and I wasn't doing well in the contest. I was just chugging along, and just watching them get in first place or whatever, like one of my best friends, that's when it just turned it on for me. And it just drove me to the next level, and I would not stop. I was in the water all day long, just trying to beat my best friend is what my goal was, and it got to the point where I surpassed him, and I was on this good run as a kid. I was winning a bunch of contests, and I don't know if it ever really stopped. I mean, I'm a competitive person, but I think as a whole with surfing, I think once I started getting the feel for surfing, like I started on longboard first, played with that for a year or so, and then I graduated to shortboard. That's when I would say that's when I started really feeling the bug and went on to the next two.
So you were inspired by people that were better than you competitively, and you were driven from that. You had a competitive drive behind it as well, yeah?
Yeah, I think I'm competitive no matter what it is. I'm just that person. But it's funny because I grew up on Pleasure Point, which is one of the best waves in Santa Cruz. You know, there's two main breaks. There's one at Steamers Lane, one at Pleasure Point, and my house is 2 houses from the point. Like, it's one of the closest houses can be. And I was just surrounded by good surfing too. It was always fun because like the whole neighborhood, there was all the top surfers were in that neighborhood, and they're somewhat around there. Like one of the famous ones, Chris Gallagher, Adam Rapogel, Kieran Horn. I had that whole group in front of me. So that was another cool thing because they'd be parking on my street, and I was just like the grom that had the biggest stroke just when they pull up, and like walk down with them to go surf. But like watching them surf is kind of also drove me to become better because it taught me like the rail game, I think, is what it came from. If you think of all those guys, they're all rail surfers. I can maybe do an air if I try, but I can't really get my ass out of the water. Like, I'm not that guy. So that was another thing too, is being surrounded by like good surfing like all the time. There's always someone out there surfing good, pushing it. So it was fun.
So is that how you learnt? Just by watching others?
By watching others, yeah. And I was never really coached, and that's what I kind of bummed me out because when I got to the next level, I was starting to go down south and travel, and by then it was like my teens, like younger teenage, and a lot of those guys had coaches or had some kind of group or someone had coaching with it, and it was never really offered up here until my let's say 16 to 17 is when Chris Gallagher started putting together like a coaching team up here, and he was helping the younger groups, and that's when it really started to kick in and kind of moving forward to the next level. But that was my problem. I didn't take it that serious. I thought it was kind of fun to like go these workouts and stuff, but I was never really like super hard on because I figured I could just do it myself. I'm kind of that guy. Like, I could watch and learn. So that's like one of the downfalls, I think, for me, was not pushing it to the next level. With the training and stuff, I was more into just surfing and finding my way that way. I learn by visual more than I do anything else. Like, watching someone surf, I can pick up on it. I find it a little bit easier for me.
Most surfers will watch the best surfers at their local break, and they'll watch them and they'll try and learn from them. But most people can't integrate what they see into their own surfing. Was there a way that you looked at those surfers, or the way that you thought about the way they surfed, that separated you from other people that were kind of thinking along the same lines? Like, why were you successful in just watching others and other people weren't? Do you know why?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I think it's just wanting to follow suit with those guys. Like Adam Rapogel, for instance, is like my all-time favorite surfer, and he took me out for the first time as a kid. I have a picture with him. It's like funny. I was a tiny little dude, but like I think just him being around me and like being an idol for the Santa Cruz kids, and I think I just wanted to be him, so I literally studied his surfing up and down. When he surfed, it was like all my attention was to Adam and how he used the rail and like how he maneuvered the board. Like, you'll never like it's hard to find a guy that doesn't jump around on a surfboard. Like Taylor Knox, he doesn't jump around. He uses all rail. Adam Rapogel, all rail. That is surfing to me, when you're finding speed through your rail and not having to hop around. And that's what's fun watching them surf, or watching Adam surf growing up, because it's a point break and you could watch him just use a rail, front hand just all the way through. And it was just like, I think that just soaked in, and that's what I wanted. So I was just dead set on being that kind of surfer. And that's what drove me to become what I am, like kind of surfing I chose to be. Like, I like to use the rail a lot. That's definitely what I foresee.
Yeah, I fall into the same category. I think I'd rather do a full-on rail turn than anything else.
Oh, it's so good. Doing a big air, something like, I'm not going to do a huge air, but like You lay one down on rail and you come out of it and do it again, like it doesn't get better than that. Like it really doesn't, because you're just putting all your umph into it, and you're just laying it on rail and you're finding your board is like the best feeling.
So when you say you were studying the surfers, your favorite surfers, and how they surfed on rail, what exactly do you mean by that? Like, were you watching footage of them?
So I was like, another thing, all of us as friends, we'd have surf movies at my house 24/7. But yet alone, like I could literally walk 30 steps and I'd sit on the rail, which is right on the cliff, and it looks straight at the point break, and I could just watch him surf the whole time. And I would take times where I just watch his whole session. Best thing ever. It was so cool, because there would be times where Kieran Horn, Chris Gallagher, Adam Rapogel, they'd all be out there shredding. It was just like more of a, movie to us than anything. It was just like entertainment. We're just watching it. It was so fun. All the kids up there just in awe watching this.
So if you get a client coming to you saying, I really want to smooth out my surfing and use my rail more, I think most people fall in the opposite category. Like you said, they're kind of hopping around, trying to pump for speed. They want to throw the tail. And
Yeah.
how do you ease them into that new way of thinking for surfing on rail?
So I think one of the biggest things missed in surfing now is people just jump straight to a shortboard, or they just bypass the biggest part of surfing, which I think you got to learn the fundamentals. And if you grab a longboard, if you learn from a longboard and kind of make your steps into surfing, I think you're going to find surfing will come a little bit easier, and you'll actually find how a surfboard works, because you're not going to get on a longboard and jump around. You know what I mean? If you want to pick up speed on longboard, you don't just jump and try and get speed. You're going to have to hold the rail, and you're going to make that section. And I think that's a lot of things that's missing in today's age of surfing. People just like see the stuff on TV and they're like, oh, I want to go, or on movies, and they're like, I want to surf like that guy. I think you got to take the time and really learn how to ride a surfboard. And you jump on a 9-foot board, that's a lot of board. And even say 10-footer, you got to keep that thing from nose diving, or just keep that thing on rail, set a rail with one of those things. It's pretty hard. And I think a lot of people miss that step in surfing. So that's one of the things I always encourage. Like when I was having bad times on shortboards and I was struggling with my surfing when I was doing contests and stuff, I learned this from Adam Rapogel, actually. He's like, dude, if you're struggling on a shortboard, go get this. It was a 7-foot board I'd bought for my little sister. It was like a hybrid thing. And I'd go out there and I'd cruise and I'd find my rail, I'd find my surfing again, and I'd jump back on my shortboard and it would put all my fundamentals back into it. And I'd be able to use, I'd be able to find my groove again. I think that's a hard thing. It's like, even with shortboards, you just get in a weird funk, and sometimes you need to step back, ride a little bit bigger board, get a little flow going, and then you jump on your shortboard and you can just light it up.
Do you get much resistance when you suggest longboarding to people?
No, but the younger kids, yes, because they're more embarrassed of it, I think. As an adult, I think a lot of them like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll try, because you're going to get some older guys that like, oh, I want to move down to a shortboard. I'm like, how about you figure out this longboard, and then we'll move to hybrid, and then hybrid down. And I think a lot of them, they take it into it, but I think the kids are going to have the harder time because they're going to see their friends riding shortboards and they don't want to be the odd duck out. So I think that's the challenge. But I would recommend to any kid that is pursuing a surfing career or competitive surfing, I would highly recommend them starting to just longboard once in a while, or even like when you have those flaws, when you have those moments where you're just not feeling it, get on a longboard and you'll learn, you'll find it again.
What exactly are you forced to do on a longer board that you don't have to do on a shortboard?
You have to slow it down. Everything slows down, and you have to pay attention to what you're doing. Like when you're paddling in a wave, you don't get to just jump up. You got to look at where the nose is going. So you get up, hold the nose, you pull a big bottom turn, you hold it, and then you set your line, and that's all rail. And then you set a line, you're jamming. You want to do a cutback, you're not just going to wrap it, you're going to slow-mo it down, and you're going to use your body to turn that board because it's a big board. And if you're doing that on a longboard, you'll get on a shortboard and it'll feel like featherweight, and you can just light it up.
So if someone wants to learn how to surf a shortboard faster, they need to jump on a longboard and slow things down first.
I just feel like it will just mentally, it just puts you in the next, because when you get on that board, like I said, it's going to feel so light, and you'll start jamming with it because you get to move the board around. So you're going to be able, the speed you want to do, as before, like you get on a longboard, you want to start jamming. It's not like that. You're going to have to kind of like find it. You're going to have to groove with it. And then you get on a shortboard, you can jam.
So I guess when you slow things down, it really teaches you more about like wave awareness and body awareness as well.
That's another point too. A lot of people come to me and ask me, I want to know how to read waves. I want to know what I'm looking for. And that's like a tough one because my, like what I choose in a wave or what I'm looking for in a wave can be completely different. Like what you look or the way you see a wave. So that's always been a challenge for me because people are like, oh, I want to know where to go. I'm like, you could always use point of contact, like on the beach, like, oh, here's the lineup. You could use that. But I think another thing is people reading waves. Like, I'm looking for a walled up wave. I'm sure you are too. But like a lot of those people don't understand what that means or what that is. That's an interesting one too, is wave selection. Like, I want a walled one so I can get going on the thing. I don't want some little mush bowl, you know?
I saw you on a longboard and you had a grom on the front of the longboard as well.
That's so fun.
Is that a strategy you use for teaching?
No, the little guy was scared in that one. He was super scared to be by himself. And then I'm like, here, I'll just take you on this big old stand-up. Went out there and he was getting psyched. He got so stoked. He like took his fear away because he was right next to me holding me. And it was funny because he kept, like, he'd stand up and he'd look back and want to hold my hand. And I'd like, nope, you can't do that, you know? And then it grew onto it. And now the kid can surf too. His name's Bob. Good little surfer.
Yeah, that would have been a big learning curve for him, you know, getting over that fear, like straight away.
Yeah, that's a tough one. A lot of kids are, it's just the ocean in general. It's a scary place no matter what it is. And that's something I always preach to people. Like, you don't know what the ocean's going to do to you. You don't know what it's going to serve you. A wave, I've had like a 2-foot wave just beat me down. And I'm just like, how does that work? I don't understand that. And then you can take a 10-footer and the thing just rolls right over you. So it's interesting how the ocean works. And I always make sure whoever I'm teaching, just like pay attention to that stuff.
So when people ask you about reading waves, what do you usually say to them?
That's a tough one. Just because, like I said, it's just like what you choose. Like your wave selection is way different than mine's going to be. Everyone's like assuming they're just going to pal out and be like, you're going to tell me what kind of wave to go for, right? And like, no, you're going to have to look at it. You're going to have to find the wave. And it's funny because the way I look at a wave, like I said, is so much different than the way you look at a wave. Ideally, what I do when I take him out there is I sit next to him and I kind of just show him how the lineup looks or how it works and how the different sections work. So it kind of gives him positioning. And then from there, it's like even watching those sets come in, they have troubles. They like ask me, how do you know when they're coming? I'm like, that's another thing. You're just going to have to look on the horizon. You're going to find it coming. And once you get to that point, I think once they ride a few waves, and then they kind of get an idea because they get a feel for what the waves can offer. For instance, I always work at the point, so it's a right-hand point. Some waves are going to be super soft. Some are going to have a wall. So I can kind of fill it out for them. So you can see when it's coming in. It'll be a nice walled-up wave, and I'll let them know, like, here, this one's going to have a wall to it. And they'll ride it. Oh, that was a killer one. That got so much speed, blah, blah, blah. And then you put them on, like, a mushy one. And they're, oh, that one wasn't that good. And you're like, okay, now you can, like, kind of justify what this has to offer and this one has to offer. And you're looking down the line what you're going to find. So I think that's kind of a tough one, though. I think it just comes of age. I think over time with surfing, it's just more you surf and more you're in the water, you're going to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good strategy you just said, is show them the contrast between a wally fast wave and a slow fat wave.
Right.
You know, you could cue them on what they saw before the wave, etc., and then it might spark them to I guess a part of it is really looking for the detail, isn't it?
For sure. That's funny because like I said, I'm looking for a walled up wave. Like, I think it just comes of taste too. Like over time, like you've been surfing for X amount of years and you've seen over the time, like, you know what you want, you know what you're looking for. Like, especially when there's a nice ledgy one, like say you're looking for some barrels, you know when it's coming, it's doubling up. You're like, that's the one I want. And then you compare that to a big old mush ball. You're like, oh, this sucks. You know, this isn't what I want. And like, I think too, you kind of get jaded as you get to the next level too with surfing. Is that wave choice is like, I'll sit on the lineup for 45 minutes and not go on a wave because I know what I'm looking for. There's a wave where I live. It's called Sewer Peak, and when we get South Swells, it's a nice big wedge. But the sets in South Swells, they'll take 45 minutes. It's just super long rolls, and everyone like they'll be going for everything, and I'll just sit there like, how do you do that? How do you just wait? I'm like, I know what I want. I know what I'm gonna get, and I'll just get one and get barreled across the whole thing. And I'm like, that's what I waited for. That's what I want. I think over time too, with people learning how to read a wave, that's the challenge too, because you'll see like when someone's learning, they'll go on anything, everything that's coming their way, they'll just take off because they're like the super stoked, happy surfer. And so I think, like I said, I think just over time you get in a rhythm and you just know what you want. And
Yeah, well, you make a good point there, is that you can't really choose the right wave if you don't know the type of wave you're looking for.
Right.
So you've got to know what you want to do with your surfing and look for the waves that are going to help you to do that.
Right.
But that's the thing though. You'll sit there for 45 minutes because you think you're gonna get the best one, and you never get it. You're like, dude, and all these little ones are going by, and you're like, no, I'm waiting, and then finally one an hour or something. But I think that's just me being salty. That's what it is.
So, what inspired you to move from being a pro to being a coach?
I did the tour for a couple of years, had okay success with the first couple of years, and then I got burnout. I think at the time in my life I wasn't really ready for it. I think I was young and still wanted to go do things like party and do all that fun stuff with girls, blah blah blah, and it kind of threw me out. And then I took a couple years off from surfing completely. From like 25 to 26, I just like stepped away. I surfed, but I wasn't really driven to do it as hard as I was because I kind of got burnt from it. And then I got like a second wind, and I got back into it. I like did this film interview, and that kind of like sparked it again. It's online. It's one I did, and I'm doing an interview, and that's like I went and got a job, stepped away from surfing that way. Like wasn't getting paid, so I was like, I'm gonna go get a job. Tried it out for a year. It was overworking, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna get back into the surf thing and try and get another go. And at the time, it was good timing because I got linked up with Fox Racing, which they were moving heavily into surf, and that kind of sparked me going into it. And so I had a good start to that with him the first year with him. And then as it was moving on, I didn't know which way I was going to go with surfing, if I was going to do contests or just free surf. And I started free surfing, and then I decided I'm going to start a surf school with coaching. And I started with one kid, Matthew Reagan, and then from there I picked up a few more other kids. But after working with Matthew, it was like when it really move forward, and I was like, okay, this is stuff that I want to do, and I want to help these guys out, these kids, because when their parents are coming to me, they're like, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't really surf, so whatever you can have. So then I started having like 3 or 4 kids a week, giving them lessons after school, so it's pretty fun, because that's what moved it on. And then I started the surf school, so forth. It just kept going.
Do you have many older clients in their 30s, sort of intermediate surfers wanting to?
I do. And what's funny is I have, like you said, I get these emails, and they're always these questions. Hey man, I've been surfing for X amount of time. I'm trying to get to the next level, but I don't know how to do this. Or can you help me get to this? Or, there's always little questions, and it's all those ones we've touched base on. I want to ride a shortboard. I want to learn how to read the waves better. And there's like all these things, and I get a lot of recurring clients, and they usually come from San Francisco or around the city area, it seems like, a lot of them. But I have one of them, Larry Sullivan, which he's come down since the beginning, and he's surfed years prior and like took a big break, and he came to me and he goes, hey, I want to learn how to surf again, or I want you to help me get to the next level. And so he still comes down, and he comes down quite often, and those reoccurring ones are fun because being an adult and like me being a little bit younger than these guys and like teaching them, it kind of cracks me up because they're listening to me, and like, I don't know, just personally, like, it always seems like you learn a lot more from your elders, but it's fun because they get the psych, and it's cool because I can pal out with them, and it's like having a kid with me, but they're a grown adult, and I'm like getting able to be in the water and coach them, and it's just classic because you'll see the same stoke that you see on a kid on a grown adult, or it's like hilarious. Like, for instance, I have this one client, she lived in Napa Valley, which is about 2 hours, and she'd drive down every Friday to go surfing with me. She'd been surfing for 20 years, and she was from Malibu and fell out of it because she moved inland in Napa. And she'd come down every Friday, and we'd go out there and shred. I'd help her get into waves because she was riding a shortboard, and she got the bug, and she came down on like a hybrid at first. I ended up getting on a shortboard, and she just went on her way. It was rad.
What do you see as the biggest obstacle hindering people's surfing capabilities?
I think it's people just shooting for the stars. You know what I mean? I think people, you see this stuff online, or you see videos of it, and I think people just assume that you can get on a surfboard and get to that level. And I think, like I said, going back to the fundamentals, I think that takes a big chunk of surfing out for people. They miss that step of their surfing. So I think the biggest challenge for people right now is just, I would say it like this, just they need to learn how to surf. And I think if it's starting from scratch and starting from the beginning up again, it's going to help a lot of people in the long run. And it's going to take a lot of those people out in the lineup thinking they rip. And really, they're just jumping around on a surfboard. And I think just riding a longboard, and even, it doesn't have to be a longboard. It could be an 8-foot hybrid or whatever. I think that will help a lot of people in the long run. One, it'll understand a wave better by paddling into it and controlling a board. Two, just riding a wave on a board that size is a lot harder than it is on a shortboard. I think just being able to maneuver a board like that, and then it gets you to that next level. And one thing I wish is a lot of the kids, like, dude, if you look at the kids nowadays, they can punt huge airs, but yet they can't do a turn. You know what I mean? Which baffles me. This sucks because it takes away from surfing. Now it's like, I see these kids, they rip. I'm not going to say they don't rip, but they'll miss 10 big sections just to do one air. You're like, what happened to the rest of the wave? That air was amazing, but yet to get there, all you did was just widen your stance and hop all the way down this line.
I've never done much longboarding, but I feel inspired to buy a longboard now.
Do it. Go get it.
It makes sense.
No, it totally does. But instead of getting a longboard, get like a hybrid or something for you, since even that will slow you down a bit. Like, grab an 8-foot hybrid or a 7.6 hybrid, mess around with that thing for a minute, and you'll get on your shortboard and you'll look at it so different.
Is there any particular longboarders who you would recommend people watch to learn from?
CJ Nelson's a good one. He's from Santa Cruz. He's a great longboarder. Wingnut's another great longboarder. Taylor Jensen can longboard really well. Alex Nose is a great example of that surfing ability. He can ride a longboard like no one else, and he could rip on a shortboard.
Do you still do a bit of longboarding?
I do when it's small, or if I'm riding like the foam boards and stuff. I mean, I'll ride this. I have this thing called the Creeper. It's like this little wide, like 6'4", like it's a hog, and it's like a big old like hybrid thing. And I'll jam on that thing when I'm feeling it. It's super fun. It's like a quad fish. Like, it's a pretty good size. I mean, it's pretty much stand up on the thing floating. It's a big old thing, and you jam on the thing. It's so fun.
Yeah. Okay. There's probably a lot of shortboarders listening that might be inspired to go out and get a longboard and start trying. What's some advice on, first of all, what type of longboard are we looking for?
Just get a big old hog, like one of those big old nose riding longboards. Not a high performance longboard, just get a big old log. Like one of those ones where you look at it, you're like, that thing is a mess. That's what's gonna teach you how to ride a board. I mean, there's the high performance ones, got rocker and it's kind of sharper rails and stuff. No, go get like one of the big old logs, like they're logs, 10-foot log, and just see what you can do with it.
What are the limitations of that sort of board? I mean, are there certain types of wave you just wouldn't even think about trying to go out in?
Nah, why not? Why don't you go test your will with it? See if you can make a drop on one of those longboards. Those guys used to do it at Waimea. They used to ride those literally logs at Waimea. You know what I mean? If they can do it, you should be able to do it. Take a steep drop on one of those and pull it. You'll be super satisfied.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, if someone's literally going out for the first, say, month on a log.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden their local brake turns on and it's 6 to 8 foot barreling, is it dangerous to take a log out?
I would say so, yeah. Especially like that. If it's like top to bottom, I wouldn't do it. But in the meantime, when you're riding all the smaller days, I'm sure there's softer waves wherever you live, unless you live at, like, I don't know, only beach break. But there's usually a soft wave you can go ride a longboard at, and I think that's what you'll find. It's just a real soft wave. It's called 38th where I live, and that's a great place where I could go ride a longboard because it just rolls. It's kind of like a Malibu style wave, and it just rolls. So that's like a good way to do it. But if it gets any bigger, then obviously I would just jump on a shortboard. But I think in between all that, you can ride a longboard and get a feel for it.
What about at beach breaks?
Ooh, that's what I was getting at. I was like, that's a tough one because longboards at beach breaks are no fun. I'm kind of spoiled because I live on a point break, so it's like, that's the difference. And I'm sure you could find some kind of soft, like Doheny wave where it's just kind of rolling sandbar somewhere. If you're not, then you're going to be riding a hybrid or something like that, because that'll be a less board, but still have enough to you where you can have to work for it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. What's an example of a good hybrid for such a thing?
The Advance is a great one. The Advance is a perfect hybrid because it's got the volume and it's got the shape of almost like it's got a nice swallowtail to it, but it's a beefy board. But you could still turn it and you can still put it on rail. It's not like it's going to limit you to just going straight. You're going to be able to turn the board even at 7.2, 7.6. You're still be able to turn the thing. And I think that's a great board, even for a man like my size. I weigh, I would say 170. I could still maneuver a 7.2. Anything over like 35 liters.
Okay, so I'm guessing you're on about 26, 27 liters on your short board.
Nailed it.
So you're adding another almost 10 liters to that.
When I hold it, I'm like, I could stand up to this thing, no problem. But like, that's what's fun, because then you paddle into it, you get into it easy, and you start cruising and having fun and like just like surfing. That's what you're doing. You're surfing.
Cool. What are you riding at the moment?
Ooh, I got a 5.7 Sci-Fi. I have a 5.4 Omni. I have, what else do I have? Oh, and then I have a Custom, which is a round tail. It's like a thumbtail. It's 5.11, 26 liters. Future fins, goes off.
What's your favorite surf movie?
Ooh, damn, that's a tough one. My favorite surf movie. Good Times. Taylor Steele. Oh, that was like that one, and then Tony Roberts movies were Progression Session. That was a game changer for me, because all the sand crews, The Kill. That was another good one. Yeah, there's pretty much all Tony Roberts movies were like the go-tos, but Taylor Steele too at that time was like changing the game.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you online or on social media?
They could find me at my surf school website, surfschoolsantacruz.com. They can find me on Instagram at Buddy Littles. And then I have a Facebook, just Bud Freitas.
Awesome. All right, Bud. Thank you so much for your time.
Right on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Surf Mastery Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Frampton. Make sure you subscribe so you can keep up to date with the latest interviews. Please share with your friends. Check us out on Facebook at Surf Mastery Surf. And if you're on iTunes, please go and give us a little rating. That'd be awesome. Until next time, keep surfing.